turn it over to Phyllis to give a brief report.
Thank you, Jim. Thank all of you. It's been an interesting session, and I'm going to talk for a minute about the silver lining of the session, and then Mike's going to talk about the budget, which is the other end of the session. So often in Richmond, as your staff and all of you come help us as well, we are constantly fighting the battle of unfunded mandates. And we feel like it's our mantra, but we often feel like we're not heard. I have to say this year, on many of the pieces of legislation that would affect local governments, I think we were heard when we said, this may not look like it to you, but it is an unfunded mandate to localities, and for that reason, you should not pass this legislation. I really feel like the message was heard this year. And for that reason, I don't have a whole lot of bad legislation to report to you. There was a really important piece of legislation that would have affected counties dramatically, and that was a study on the costs of sovereign immunity to localities and what the cost would be if the sovereign immunity of counties was, how can I say, eroded to a certain amount of money, like the state is, to bring counties under the Tort Claims Act. And I'm trying not to sound like a lawyer, but it's hard for me. In any case, in that study, it was a recommended JLARC study that had a foregone conclusion in it. It was a study to study the cost to localities with the conclusion of including localities in the Tort Claims Act, which would waive some of your sovereign immunity, which would result in many, many more claims against your localities when you're engaged in your governmental functions, your public safety, your education, all the things that you do every day. And I'm happy to say that that study did not pass, because I really feel that the legislators heard us and said, we are in great economic strife. We are having trouble keeping good employees in jobs that expose them to so many liabilities. Please do not do this to localities. So that failed, along with a number of other legislative actions that would have added new programs. There was some legislation that would have required all localities to use a computer system to verify immigration status, and all the private entities got out, and it ended up applying to local and state government. And we argued, you may not think this is an added cost, but it's an added cost. It's an added cost in software, it's an added cost in people that we don't have, people that we're furloughing or having to lay off. Please understand what this means. And for that reason, a lot of legislation that would have cost a lot of money did not pass this year. And I think that is really a blessing, and I think that the fact that we were able to be heard is something that is going to bode well for us in the future, in terms of explaining what these costs are when you push them down to the localities. So that's my silver lining. Mike is going to talk about some of the budget issues.